Give me 1 second here. The camera's blinking. All right. Welcome to the Noble Pen Podcast. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No problem. No problem. You seemed like a pretty interesting writer. I wanted to get you on as soon as I could. So
Brilliant, fantastic. I'm glad.
absolutely. Okay. First off, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you start writing, and what genre do you write in?
Well, I started writing, and I've loved writing right from the earliest of ages, but I gave it up for a while. I pursued other interests, but it wasn't until relatively recently I decided to get back into it.
Okay.
It was just for fun, doing it via a blog, a
Okay.
comedy blog, and then I got the idea of doing a story. Um, I thought it would just be a short story, and I
Hmm.
thought, hey, it's just going to be a little bit of fun. That's fine. And it turned into be a three-part novel, a novel trilogy, crime trilogy. So I didn't expect that very much.
Right. And what
Um,
genre is that trilogy in?
well, that is crime thriller, but I write in multiple genres. My
Okay.
most recent release is actually urban fantasy, supernatural urban fantasy, and
Cool.
my next release is going to be a classic gothic horror.
Oh
So,
wow,
so I'm
that's
kind
pretty cool.
of, yeah, I'm pretty much all over the place in terms of genres.
All right. Do you write more than one book at a time then?
Um, I, while I'm writing one book, I'm planning another.
Okay.
So I have different ideas in my head. It's just I try not to get sidetracked by one more than the other. And I've got a bit of a backlog, a back catalogue of stories and novels I've written that I can just polish them up. I can edit them
Okay.
and then release the next one out. So that's what I'm doing. This gothic horror that I'm going to release in the next few months, that was written a couple of years ago, and I decided, hey, it's still really good to go. I've edited it profusely,
Yeah.
and now it'll be good to go soon. So yeah, that's how I do it.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Do you plan to stick to one of the genres that you've been writing? Because you said you've been writing all over the spectrum. Is there one genre that you think that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to stick with this one? And if there is one, why that genre?
I think I'm going to stick with anything supernatural. So whether it be traditional ghost stories, or whether it be like my most recent release was a vampire book. So
Okay.
anything I just really love this anything supernatural. So I'll probably be sticking in either um, urban fantasy or horror, but anything supernatural, I think that's what I'm going to stick at, and I just love it. It's
Okay.
just it gives you so many different opportunities to tell crazy, wild, over the top tales. You know,
Okay.
there's sky's the limit really, and I've always loved like horror books or horror movies, things like that. So yeah,
And how
I
do you
feel
come
that's
up
my
with your
wheelhouse.
characters? Is that where you draw your characters from, like horror movies that you watch or books that you've read? You say, okay, I want to do this, but a little bit different.
I take inspiration from them. I don't think to myself, oh, that movie was great with that character. I'm going to write that character in my story. You know, that would just be fanfic, which
Oh,
is
right.
great. That's fine if you want to do
No, I
that.
mean, is that where you
Um,
get your inspiration from, though? How you want to create your characters to make them different?
yeah, yeah, I would say so. I do get my like inspiration from my stories. Like my most recent novel, I've got it here. I don't know if you can see it or if it's backwards.
No,
I
we can
don't know
see
if
it.
you can see it. The Flesh Market Vampire.
Okay.
I got the inspiration of this when I recently watched one of my favourite movies, The Lost Boys.
Okay.
And I thought, like, I love vampires, and I thought, what if there was a modern day cool vampire movie or book, only it was set in modern day, not in the 80s? And that was what got my creative juices flowing. So an idea of like modern day hedonistic vampires,
Okay.
um, where there's one gang that's cruel and cold blooded and very bloodthirsty,
Right.
And I always like the idea of a character who's kind of a loner, kind of like the outcast,
Yeah.
and who's had to be strong themselves and find their own way. And those two certain ideas just merged perfectly for that book.
Okay. Tell me some essential characteristics of the hero of your vampire book.
Well, Mercy, she is very much a loner and she's very jaded. She is nearly 6 centuries old, so she's an old vampire and she's seen it all. She has witnessed the very best in mankind and the very worst. She's seen firsthand world wars. She has seen genocide. She has seen religious cruelty, but she's also seen fantastic scientific growth and scientific discovery, and she's
Okay.
seen man come together. There's nothing that she hasn't seen or done, but a combination of that is she's become really quite jaded. So
Right.
my character Mercy is she's a loner because she realized that she didn't fit in with the other vampires. She didn't want to just be a monster killing the most vulnerable, the poor, the weak, the homeless. She didn't want to be that way. But at the same time, she's also become quite disillusioned with humanity. So she's living her own life as a loner, jaded with absolutely everyone. And I think that if you've lived for 600 years, I think that you would get a little bit jaded too,
Yeah, of course.
you know, having seen and done it all. So I think
Right.
that's a core concept of whatever happens to her in the book. That is her personality now, you know.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. That sounds fantastic. Tell me something that you've learned since you began writing that you wish you knew when you started writing for our younger writers out there.
That every day is a school day. Every day you're learning something new, and you're never the finished article. So if I could go back and tell myself something, it would be to ignore your self doubt, the imposter syndrome. You
Okay.
know, when you first start writing, um, you're full of doubts. You've got all this creativity in your head, and you've got all these ideas for stories, and you want to do something great with them. But most people will find that they have niggling doubts. What if I'm not good enough? What if my writing quality is crap? What if
Yeah.
I'm not good enough to be published? What if people read my work and they laugh or they think that it's terrible? You're not good enough to do this. You know, you're never
Hmm.
going to be like your
Right.
favorite author. All of these, you know, authors and writers tend to be full of neuroses at the best of times.
Hmm.
So, you know, the neuroses can be strong. So what I would say is ignore that part of it. Understand that you're just starting, you're not the
Right.
finished article, you'll never be the finished article, but you will get better. But you have to believe in yourself and just be really open to constructive criticism and feedback, and
Okay.
you will see yourself improve quickly.
Okay. That's fantastic advice. I appreciate that. Let's roll into what's the hardest thing about writing for you then that you feel like that was a mountain you had to climb over.
Um, Apart from the imposter syndrome, that was my biggest mountain. But when it comes to writing, I'm trying to figure out my voice and how I was going to go around planning my stories, you know,
Okay.
my character voice, um, and how I was going to get my own personality. See, I like a lot of humor in my stories, dry, witty humor. I
Okay.
like that in my life. So when it came to writing things, how was I going to instill my own personality, how I like to write things? How was I going to put that down and not just end up mimicking another book that I've read,
Okay.
you know, or their
Yeah.
voice? So it's developing your own voice, and that just comes with practice and dedication.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. How do you get the ideas for your books? Is there anything that you pull from, any type of, information, any inspiration? Where do you get your inspiration and your ideas?
Well, it's a combination of just ideas, things popping into my head, and a combination of that and like I'm a real movie buff. I love my movies. I like reading, but I love my movies,
Okay.
and I I think to myself, I wish there was a movie that had this in it or that in it, or I wish I had this story. And so I think to myself, well, that sounds like an awesome idea. Why don't I write it?
Okay.
You know, so that's
Yeah.
where I get my ideas from.
That's actually
Um,
pretty cool.
yeah, so my work that's coming up that will be released in a few months,
Hmm.
that's a gothic horror set in the 1800s in America,
Okay.
in an insane asylum. Um, so it's going to be split between that and modern day, the effects of what happened in that asylum in modern day. And I got the idea from where I lived, my last home. It was such a weird place, but it had on one side of the road there was this lovely kids play park. It was
Okay.
really nice. And on the opposite side of the road there was a cemetery, a really old gothic looking cemetery.
Okay.
And I just loved the idea that on one side of the road you've got the start of life. You know, you've got kids, innocent kids beginning with their life. They've got new adventures. They don't know who they're going to be. It's the very it's the very antithesis or the very um, it's the exact feeling of life and happiness. And then you cross the road and there's the entrance to a really maudlin, dark, sad place full of death and
Right.
people who've come to the end of their life. And I
Okay.
just thought that was such a weird contradiction that got me started on the idea. So now I've got this insane asylum that's sitting on top of a wooded hill, and at the front of it there's this um, an old cemetery
Okay.
that's full of ghosts and things like that. And then the opposite side is where my protagonist starts. He starts out as a young boy, and that's the play park that he plays with his brother in.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and then that was the core of the story, and then it just went from there.
So you
So
drew from the environmental surroundings then?
yeah, absolutely. The
Okay.
most random little things can get me going. Like my most recent release that's available now, the Flesh Market Vampire.
Hmm.
It sounds like it's like, oh, Flesh Market? Why that?
Why that?
Well,
Yeah.
I live in Edinburgh in Scotland, and in Edinburgh there's a really old place called Flesh Market Close,
Okay.
and it's got such a provocative name. I thought, oh my God, can you imagine like a vampire stalking the ancient streets of Edinburgh? And one of these streets, one of these alleyways is Flesh Market Close. And that gave me the idea for the story. It gave me the idea for the name of the novel. And it's like you said, it's just surroundings in your atmosphere. I had
Right.
no idea that there was such a place called Flesh Market Close in the city that I live in. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Right.
And that's what
Okay.
starts you off.
Okay. How do you go about marketing? And do you think there's any marketing for like self-published authors or younger authors that seem to work a little bit better than other methods?
Yeah, that's where I have a lot of trouble. Some authors are naturally great at marketing themselves. Some people aren't. I definitely am not good at marketing. But what I've found is I chose to go down the self-published route rather than traditional publishing because I'm a control freak. I wanted to be able to be in control of every part of my story, how
Of
to
course.
release it, everything. Um, when you're doing marketing as an indie author, though, you are in charge of everything, but you have to lay out everything, so everything costs you. If you're going to advertise on social media, you have to set aside a budget for that. If you're going to advertise here, you have to set a budget. It's all coming out of your, and you need to learn. It's all trial and error. Some things, like for me, Facebook is really good. I advertise on Facebook and I get a lot of feedback. I get a lot of interaction on Facebook. Whereas
Okay.
Twitter, I've tried advertising on Twitter. I don't really
Not
get
so
it as
much.
much. Yeah,
Okay.
not so much. I don't know why. I think it's maybe just my followers on Facebook are more interactive, so they're more likely to pick up a book.
Right.
Um, What's really good is a mailing list. If you can build up your own mailing list, it's not easy, but if you can build up a mailing list and then you can send emails to them, advertise to them, oh, my book's coming out soon, oh, it's available on pre-order. You can start to get excitement built up, and these are people who are already interested in you as an author. They've already chosen to sign up to you, to your mailing list. So that is a
Right.
really great option, and it doesn't cost you anything because they have
Okay.
already come to you. You've already got a list of email addresses of people that want to know about you as an author. They want to know about your writing, so that's completely free. But for anyone who's just starting out, I would say it's all trial and error.
Okay.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you've got a very limited budget, I mean, let's be honest, we've all got limited budgets right now. Everyone's finding it hard right now. So pick out a certain amount that you can afford and then just tap into it. Tap into a little bit of Twitter or Instagram or TikTok and see what kind of response you get. And if you're getting absolutely nothing in one of them,
Hmm.
forget it. Just find out what you get um, the best feedback from, and
Right.
then just plow more into that, and it'll get easier for you.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Do you have a friend or family member that you send your work to before you publish it? And how do you know who to trust with that?
Yeah, I only have one that I trust, and that's my mum, because she is really unforgiving.
Okay.
She is really, really brutal when when it comes to possible plot holes, when it comes to typos that I've made, any possible mistakes. I can guarantee you, she will find it. She will find
Okay.
that plot hole. She will
Well, that's
find
sort
that
of
typo.
what you need, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't really trust other family members when it comes to reading. Find find yourself a good selection of beta readers, people who are interested in reading brand new books from newbie authors, and it's an exclusive for them because they've never read this. No one has read this. They're getting in at the ground floor in a new story that hasn't been published. They are being part of it, and ask for their feedback. Don't use family, because family, they love you and they want to
It
say,
might
oh, that was
sugarcoat it.
awesome. Yeah,
Right.
when maybe there's a lot of improvements that could be made. So get out on social media, get involved in groups, and then put together a core team of beta readers and say, listen, here is a questionnaire that I've filled in. So you send them the book and that you give them a questionnaire. And the questions can be, what did you think of the protagonist? Did you like him? Did you hate him? Were you bored with him? Did you like the story? Was it well paced? Were there any points where you thought it kind of dragged a little bit?
Yeah.
Did you
Okay.
like the ending? Would you like to see more? Any questions that you can think of, and then send that off to a team of beta readers that you think you can trust to get back, and just take as much feedback as you can get. You know, be
Yeah.
humble, be humble, and be honest. And if they give you feedback where it's like, actually, I really didn't like this, well, you know, take it on board. And if you find that you have um, multiple beta readers all saying the same thing,
Okay.
that's when you can think, oh, they all loved this character. That must be a great character. They loved the plot twist. They never saw it coming and they really loved the ending. Or if they say, well, the second act of your story really did drag. If you've got 10 beta readers and 8 of them say, well, the middle of it kind of dragged a bit, well, that's when you know maybe I need to re-edit the middle part of the book and speed
Yeah.
things up a bit.
Okay.
So that's the advice I would give. That's what I do.
Okay. All right. Give us an in-depth explanation of your favorite genre to write. Because you see, I started this podcast to teach new authors and to help have a video to go to. It's almost like a how-to, right?
Yeah,
Give us
yeah.
an in-depth explanation of whatever favorite genre that you write, and how do you know that you're writing in that genre correctly?
I think I think you'll know you're writing in your favorite genre when you get the most amount of fun from it and the most amount of passion. Like I said, I started off with a crime thriller, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, whatever.
Yeah.
But then when I started writing with stories, adventure stories with supernatural elements, that's when like my creativity really came alive, and that's
Okay.
when I was like, oh yeah, that's what I know. I know I'm home. I'm
Yeah.
home. That's where I really feel. So you might find yourself more frustrated, or you might find yourself getting more excited. But whatever kicks your passion off within a certain genre,
Yeah.
that's when you'll know you've found it. And you might find that you have to write in a few different genres to really discover that. You know, you
Right.
if you're starting off writing, you might think you've got a great story and you'll go with that, but then you'll find a different story where it's like, yeah, I wrote a thriller and it was okay. I enjoyed it, but I really loved the romance aspect of that. Well,
Right.
maybe you belong in the romance genre, so maybe your next book should be a romantic thriller or just a straight up romance, you know, feel
Right.
good romance. And
Okay.
if you loved writing that story and you could really sink your teeth into it, then that's, you know, you found your genre.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's actually really good advice. So what you're saying is basically play off of your own writing, right? As opposed to reading other people's writing and saying, "Oh, I want to write like that." See
Yeah.
what you like about what you're writing.
Yeah, absolutely. See what you enjoy the most out of. Doesn't matter if you get frustrated with it, as
Yeah.
long as you
We all
feel,
get frustrated as authors.
yeah,
I'm sure everybody does.
yeah,
You
as
want to
long as
get
you're
it out, but you
passionate
don't know
about it.
how to. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. How do you approach chapter length? Because I've noticed a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on that. Like
Mm.
some people say a chapter should be this long, other people say a chapter should be this long. How do you approach that? How do you know when to end it, and where do you think is the sweet spot there?
I like to have relatively short chapters. I
Is there a
find
reason for
that,
that?
yeah, I find that it's more convenient for the readers because readers have busy days now. Not all readers can binge read something and spend 2 or 3 hours at something. They might only be able to read a chapter or two at a time. So having shorter chapters where they can put the book down is just more convenient for them, and it finds it's an easier place for them to pick back up. I've also found that if you're writing a story that's faster paced, the scenes will be faster and the scenes will be shorter, so the opportunity to um, put in chapter breaks will be easier.
Okay.
So it really depends on the type of story you're writing, but I like to, if you're going to write for your readers, I like to write stuff that's easy to pick up, that's easy to go through, it's easy reading.
Yeah.
That's just my genre. I like that,
Right.
and
Okay.
one of the feedback that I constantly got was, it's nice that the chapters aren't too long. It means that I can pick it up and put it down whenever I like to, and they just found it much more convenient, much easier to read, and my readers
Yeah.
enjoy that more. So I'll go with that.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Tell me about one of your most interesting characters to you uniquely, and why is that one of your most interesting characters? What aspects of that character do you like the most?
Um, I think one of my favourite characters um, was probably Mercy, the 600-year-old vampire
Okay.
from the Flesh Market Vampire. Um, it's the first time I've ever wrote a character that is supernaturally old and has had the more than the average human age.
Hmm.
So that allowed me to go into sort of complex feelings of how you would be. We all have the idea of like, wouldn't it be awesome if you had like immortality? That would be so awesome, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have to worry about dying. You could see so many things. And then I think to myself, but would it be that awesome? Would it really be that awesome? What if people that you loved, that you grew to love, you saw them get old and die?
Hmm.
And they were all leaving you behind. What if you got to see all these fantastic things, but you never got to see anything new? There would be no such thing as time, because time wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks of it as like you become young, you become middle-aged, and then you become old, and you've got a very finite time to fit in as many hopes and dreams that you possibly can. But what if
Right.
that doesn't become an issue anymore? you
Okay.
know
Yeah, absolutely.
so I love the idea of having a complex character that had that. Then on top of that, she's a vampire, the supernatural aspect of it.
Hmm.
So what if you were a good person, but you had to literally, to live, you had to feed off of people? How were you going to do that? How could your conscience, um I'm trying not to give my spoilers away.
Right.
But
Right.
what if you found yourself as a good person, jaded, but you had a good sense of what's morally right and wrong, but in order for you to live, you had to actually feed off of people.
Oh,
How could your
you're
how
kind of
could
in
your
a quandary
sense
there.
yeah, how could you look at yourself in the mirror? What would you do to live, and yet you're literally draining the life force out of people, potentially killing them? You know,
Right.
you're going
Yeah.
to eventually end up killing them, but you're a good person. How can you square that circle? And that's what my character has to try and do. So yeah, I like the depth that this one has.
Okay. Okay. That's a great answer. If you could pick the brain of one of your favorite authors, a mainstream author, even a self-published author that you might know personally,
Yeah.
who would it be and why?
For me, it would be my favorite all time, and it's going back to the classics. It would be Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh wow. Okay, that's a
I
good answer.
I love Edgar Allan Poe. I love the gothic tones of it. The Raven is by far my favorite work of his.
Okay.
I would want to pick his brains, because he was very much a tortured soul. If you go into
Yeah.
his life, he was a shambles half the time. Um, I'd love to know how he got his stories, how he got his ideas, and why he set the gothic tone, because he was one of the first, along with the likes of Mary Shelley and some others.
Yeah.
He was, one of the fathers of the modern gothic feel. Where did he come up with that? Why? And you know I just I'd love to just sit him down, have a drink with him, and just let him spill his guts about how
Okay.
everything and anything. Just tell me more.
Okay. That's a great answer. Great answer. How did you come up with your series now. Now, did you leave like book one at a cliffhanger, or was there other things that you left out for people's minds to say, hey, I want to see what happens next with that? How did you approach that?
Yeah, well, I wanted the first one to be to function on its own as a standalone book, but I
Right.
decided to leave it as slightly open-ended. Not that it was a cliffhanger, but just the knowledge that this world that I've created could potentially continue. So that's what I did for the Flesh Market Vampire. I've had the feedback has been almost unanimously great. They love the world that I've created. They love the characters. They love Mercy, and they want to see more of it.
Okay.
So, um, I left it open like that, and now I've decided that yeah, I do want to continue with that world, that universe that I've created.
Mhm.
Um, and now I'm just coming up with ideas on the sequel. So while I'm releasing this gothic horror book, right?
Yeah.
Um, while I'm releasing that, I'm going to be working on the sequel. So, like we said at the beginning of the interview, I work in more than one book at a time.
Right.
That's where it comes in. So I've got the rough, like I said, the Flesh Market Vampire only got released a few months ago, so it's relatively new. But I'm already working on ideas for a sequel, and I'm planning and chatting how the sequel will go, so that by the time I've finished the marketing run for my gothic horror book,
Okay.
the idea I'll already be ready to start writing the sequel to the Flesh Market Vampire. And no one knows that there's going to be a sequel, so world exclusive for you there.
Yeah.
I've not told anyone that there's going to be a sequel, but now
Well,
your listeners, now
whoever
has the
watches the
world.
video is gonna know now. So
Yeah, so yeah, you've got an exclusive there. There is going to be a sequel. It's going to be the start of a series. So,
that's
yeah,
awesome. There you go. Okay, I got a good question for you here. I don't mean this in mercy for your vampire book. I just mean in a generalistic sense.
yeah.
Would you ever consider killing off a main character? And if so, why or why not?
I've done it before in books that I've not released yet.
Okay.
Whether I ever release them or not, I don't know. I may or may not, depending on how much I hate myself. But yeah, I absolutely would. Yeah, but it needs to serve a higher purpose. I'm not going to give a protagonist plot armor just because I like them or just
Right.
because they seem like a cash cow. Everyone loves Mercy or everyone loves this character or that character. Well, I need to keep them alive to keep these books going.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
seems like a bit of a cop out to me. Um, I've killed off main characters in the past, and I absolutely will. But if they're gonna die, it needs to serve a bigger purpose.
Okay.
They need to. They don't have to save the world, but their death needs to serve a bigger purpose for the story.
Hmm.
I'm not going to kill off a character for shock value or because I think, I'm a bit bored of this character and I've got an idea for this great new character, and just kill off the old one, kill off the old one.
Right.
It
Okay.
needs to serve his or her death needs to be something profound, and it needs to make sense to the story. So absolutely, I would, but I would have to take great care in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see your writing as like a spiritual or therapeutic act for yourself? And if you do, how does that change you as a person? What does it do for you emotionally and mentally?
Oh God, that's a great question. Yeah, my writing is therapy. It is absolutely therapy for me. It's the only thing that keeps me sane. I,
Right.
I originally started writing a comedy blog years and years ago as a form of therapy.
Oh, wow.
Um, I have so many people have mental health issues. I've got
Yeah.
one,
Okay.
um, and so I needed an outlet. like so many writers do. I needed an
Yeah.
outlet for my creativity, um, for my feelings. If I'm going through a really bad time, I can put that really bad time in a story with a character, and it helps me to flesh out that character. I can
Okay.
make it as heartbreaking as I want to because I'm giving a part of myself over to this book. Similarly, if I'm going through a great time, if I'm loving life, my
Yeah.
characters can be like that too. But either way, I draw from my own personal feelings.
Right.
And if I'm drawn from my own emotions, my own personal feelings, then that emotion will come across in the page. It helps to make the characters that much more realistic because those characters will have more realistic feelings, more
Yeah.
complicated feelings because they're
Okay.
mine. So it helps. Yeah, it's definitely a form of therapy for me. I don't think I could do without it. Even if I decided to stop publishing, I would still continue to write for me
For
because
yourself.
it gets
Right.
all of my worries, my fears, my frustrations, my insecurities, my happiness and sadness, gets it all out of me. So yeah, absolutely. I'd
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. Do you think it's okay for the same author using the same pen name or their real name to switch between fiction and nonfiction and publish both of those books? Or do you think that you should use a separate pen name for each because of credibility issues?
Um, Another good question. I have changed. I've switched genres, and I have the same pen name. I only have one pen name right now, but some people might want to change pen names um, for a number of reasons. So, for example, some people maybe they like erotica. You
Yeah.
know, they like to write smutty books. It's
Hmm.
very, very common, it's very popular, but they
Yeah.
might not want their family or their work colleagues knowing that. So they change. So you'll find that a lot of erotica books, the authors have these fantastical, awesome names, and you're like, oh my God, they can't be really, because they choose to write in a different pen name. Other people, they might want to change genre. They might be romance authors and they've built up a massive following of faithful romance readers,
Right.
and then they've written book after book of romance and they've got a big following of romance, but then they want to try something different. They want a crime thriller or a steampunk. They
Yeah.
just want to try something new.
Yeah.
Well, they could release that to their faithful readers, and a lot of those readers will follow them, but they may hate it because they just don't like steampunk, or they
Yeah.
don't like thrillers.
Right.
And, so they might want to start off afresh and build up a new set of fans that love thrillers who will actually like that. So there's a lot of reasons why people adopt pen names, and it could be anything from they like the anonymity in their own life to, yeah, like you said, credibility. Might not even be credibility, it might just be that they've written in one genre for so long and they know that their fans just will not like gothic horror.
Hmm.
So
Right.
they add, it means starting all over again as an unknown, but hey, it's a challenge.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, what I was aiming for there is I've had a couple of conversations. I don't know if you've watched a couple of the past episodes, but
Yeah.
I've had a couple of conversations with people that like they don't feel if they write in fiction that they'll be credible in nonfiction because how can you
Uh,
write something that's true and believable when you're so used to writing all fake things? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's hard for that person to keep that credibility through both genres. There's what I
I
was
think
aiming for.
when it comes to non-fiction, it's what your main source of credibility is you. So if you have any qualifications or work experience or life history that will give you that credibility. It doesn't matter if you write fiction, you know, because your imagination will give you credibility in the fiction. Your ability to write a great book will give you credibility in the fiction aspect. Non-fiction, what gives you credibility is experience, or what either world experience or practical experience, or you might have certain qualifications. Like if you're writing non-fiction history, what's going to give you the credibility is if you were a historian, or if you have a history degree. That gives you, people who read history non-fiction don't care if you write about vampires or mushy love stories on the side. They don't care about that. It's fine. They want to know about your chops, your writing chops as a historian, or if you're writing some kind of autobiography because you've had a truly captivating life, then it's your life that would give you that credibility. So I don't think there's a problem with it. I really don't think there's a problem with that at all.
Fantastic answer. Listen, I think we've had a great podcast. I mean, this is, I think one of the, the best informational ones yet anyways. I really appreciate your time. I will have this spun down as soon as I can. I'll get the link over to you so you can check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And for your viewers, check out Flesh Market Vampire. This is the advertising bit, the marketing bit.
Where can they buy that? Is that available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble?
It's available on Amazon, every single Amazon marketplace. So yeah, it's just a couple of dollars for your viewers in America for the ebook, and it's also available for a handful of dollars on paperback in all Amazon markets. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks for sharing that. I had a great podcast with you, and I hope to do it with you again sometime.
Absolutely. I really look forward to it. Good luck with the podcast.
Thank you, MT. Appreciate it.
Bye.